What's happening, people? Welcome to Music Monday. Music Monday. Alright, and today in the skillet we're going to be talking about a tune I wrote for JC called Flowers. Alright, Flowers. I probably penned this one 7 or 8 years ago, and this one's kind of an unusual tune because it's one of the few that I have written that take like 3 random verses lyrically and tie them together with a chorus they don't really have anything to do with each other. So, or tell any story or make any profound conclusion. So it's kind of a poetic imagery melodically, if you would. Drew's themes like that, and there's probably a couple others that I've written that are like this. All right, that being said, this whole song was born out of the first verse. I remember I had a dream one night, and such a bizarre dream that I got up out of the sleep and wrote down the whole first verse just the way I remember it. And I got it down, and here it goes. It goes, had a dream last night I was down at the crossroads. Mephistopheles was there with a banjo and a crossbow. There were locomotives in the trees, and saw blades in the air, and he asked if I knew the difference between hope and despair. Wow, okay, we could just talk about this first verse if you wanted to, but let's dive right in. Okay, so I had this dream, and what I remember about it first was these giant, like old, 19th century locomotives hanging up in these oak trees. So the scene kind of looked like, imagine a hurricane had gone through, blown everything off the face of the earth except these large tree trunks. And then these trees were holding these huge locomotive engines, several of them. And in the air were flying these saw blades, and I'm talking a saw blade like a sawmill saw blade that are 3 or 4 feet in diameter, and they were flying not vertically but horizontally through the sky, several of them just zipping all over the place. It was kind of like, I don't even know how to describe it. It was apocalyptic, really looking scene. Somewhere right in there too, I happened to be standing there with the demon Mephistopheles from that book. I remember I had to write this down because I want to tell you because I read it in high school. The Tragical History of Dr. Faustus by Christian Marlowe. Gosh, if you never read that, it kind of ties into that same theory of a guy making a deal with the devil. So in this dream I was having, I guess, I don't remember me standing there. I don't remember making a deal with him, but we were standing there, and I remember in the dream he had a banjo and a crossbow on his back. Why? I don't know. And he asked if I knew the difference between hope and despair, and I'm like, oh yeah, sure I do. So here's where the chorus kind of ties in. I think where I had the idea. Somewhere along the way, I had been looking at pictures of Barrett, my daughter, when she was probably 4 or 5, and we had a photographer come in and take some pictures of the kids, and they were in this little park, and she had all these flowers in her hair. And somehow I'd been looking at those pictures at the same time I was writing this, and I was like, okay, that captures like, youth and innocence and pureness and everything, the essence of everything that's untainted, if you will, in life. So I think I use it kind of in contrast to these verses, when you're talking about, I don't even know how you describe the warlike scene of what some of the other verses imply. So these two things kind of play off each other, and I think that was my whole idea poetically of trying to do that and then put it to music. All right, so I want to get into the second verse. I don't think a lot of people probably missed this. This is kind of a tip of my hat to an Oasis tune, Wonderwall. I don't know if people ever even catch this. All the roads I travel seem so winding, and all the light that leads the way seems so blinding. Now that's a paraphrase of one of the couple lines in Wonderwall, but I always thought those were such beautiful and profound lines. I wanted to use them. So thank you, boys. All the roads I travel seem so winding, and all the light that leads the way seems so blinding. And man, there's so much truth in that. But there's no demon in the cellar. So you're fooling yourself if you're letting your mind play tricks on you and lead you into things that are not good for you. But there's no demon in the cellar, so open it to the light. And the stained glass will shimmer as the morning doves take flight. And that is a direct reference to letting the light in, letting your faith lead you through the dark places. So open it to the light, doves, you get it, the whole Christian symbolism of opening your spirit like that. All right, so that's what all that's about. Last verse. Like my father before, I'm a steward of the land. This is a direct, nod to my father, who ran Deerwood for 50 years and was an incredible environmental steward of that place. He did a lot of great work in conservation, recycling, renewable stuff. I mean, he was doing this long before the whole green thing came along. So he was kind of walking the walk and talking the talk on that front long before it came to, the new thing to do. Now, the last part that says, and the brook runs underneath, I want to bring this up because it reminds me, the brook I'm talking about that runs underneath, at the camp chapel there, we had this nice little chapel where we'd have morning church and vespers when we ran the camp. And the benches that you would sit on were all over the little brook. And there was this tiny spring-fed brook that would go right under our feet. So, we would be sitting there singing songs and listening to service or whatever, and you could hear the water trickling underneath your feet. It was just one of those images I'll never forget on a Sunday morning. I don't think you could have a better cathedral than that when you're just sitting in nature and that's going on. Your feet are 2 feet over the little brook, and you're just taking it all in. And that would run down and feed into the swimming lake. So the brook runs underneath, and Mother Nature, she speaks, reminds me to keep simplicity. And yeah, so much in that. Sometimes we get inside our head so much that we need to just, hey man, break it down, peel a few layers off, keep it simple, keep your eye on the things that you can fix, and let go of the stuff that you can't. Be present and accept it for what it is. That's really all you can do, man. You can tie that into anything you want. All right, so that's kind of what's in the skillet today. Is a tune I wrote for JC called Flowers. And for you guitar players, I do want to always give you a little tidbit. This one's in Dadgad, but minus you keep your 6th string, don't tune it down. So just your 1st and 2nd, your E and your B are tuned down to D and A. All right, then you put a capo on the 2nd fret, and you get in E, like an E minor position, which puts this an F sharp minor. So this F sharp minor. I think that's a B, and then a B. Yep. So F sharp minor D. There's the nuts of it and bolts of it. And I'll show you some more because the chorus is a little bit different. Kind of gets a little bluegrassy with That's it. Flowers, and Bill Taylor played some really nice bass on this, kind of gave it a nice little roll when the verses pick up. And it came out pretty good. I'm glad I finally got around to recutting it with the band. It was on one of my solo records first, and I was always liked it, and I wanted to cut it with JC. Triz had some nice fiddle on it, and it came out pretty darn cool. So if you've never heard it, go check it out. By all means, share it. And as Paul Harvey would say, now you know the rest of the story.